But many a pakwisi in the nana mo sinin komo. Sorry. Na yenjin thoughts on this matter or a director ma IES yenjin ne thoughts. Nana, good morning.
Good morning, Sammy, and good morning to your listeners.
I'm hoping you're doing well today, sir.
I'm super good.
All right. Now, there is indication that there is the likelihood that we may experience fuel shortages. What informs this thinking?
Well, I heard a panel at your studio who has done justice to what we were seeking to put across. And one, it shouldn't be so much a cause for worry, and we shouldn't panic if the players will find answers to the situation that we are having. It is clear that between the last 6 months, the price of gas oil on the world market has doubled. And so it means if you had a capital of, let's say, $20 million, and you were bringing a particular quantity and you want to bring same today, all things being equal, if your capital is the same, it means you can't bring that quantity. That means there's a squeeze in how much you can supply to the market. So one, it is hinged on international oil price. The next thing we are looking at is the forex exposure or the risk. If you brought in the last window 20 million metric ton and you bought your dollar for 7 cedis, and this time around you have to buy your dollar for 7 cedis, 40 pesos, a clear exposure of 40 pesos, that you might need to look for to add on to your capital so you can be sure to bring the same quantity you brought the last window. And so basically, both international price risk and the forex risks we are facing are squeezing the working capital of importers, being the BDCs. Okay. And the only thing that can make them work the way they used to work and ensure consistent supply of these fuels for our markets is that they need to get additional capital to shore up the depleting working capital. And so if their financiers, the banks, are willing and able to give them this, then of course they are covered and there's no cause for concern. But if the banks are not extending credit to them, if the financiers are not extending additional working capital, then of course we are in for a trouble, because you can supply what you want to because your working capital is squeezed. And let's note one thing: almost every fuel we consume in this country is imported, and it's imported in dollars, and it's imported from the international markets. So whatever is happening in these two areas, our local forex domain as well as the international markets, is definitely impacting on importers as well as OMCs, because when importers see high price and they want to transfer, it means that their commodity is becoming expensive for OMCs, and it is those who have money that can buy. So the importers can bring it in, all right. Now the marketers are also having a challenge, going to look for additional capital so they can buy the same quantity. Because in the last 3 months or beginning this year, they were buying it for roughly 4 cedis, 80 pesos per liter. That is the ex-refinery price, excluding the taxes. Today, they are looking at somewhere around 650 or 7 cedis per liter as ex-refinery price, excluding the taxes. So it means that they are also getting a hit from that angle. So both BDCs and OMCs are looking for additional capital, are looking for an extension of working capital, and so they can do the same. If they're able to get it, trust me, Sammy, there's no problem. But if the trend is sustained, where we will constantly be seeing the value of the cedi depleting or falling, and we keep on seeing international price go up, then it becomes a challenge for both importers and marketers of these products.
It's interesting you premise your position on all other things being equal, and you made the case that if their bankers, that's the importers' bankers, are willing to support them, considering the volatility of the products we are talking about. Again, we are also losing sight of the fact that whatever be the price of the product, there's a profit margin that is on it, and there's a possibility of a plowback approach that these businessmen may decide to use as well. Now, let's focus on these two.
Sammy, let me address that. Quick one. I'm sure you have men who go to the ground. Get to the ground and ask the marketers if their margins are going up or is the same. In fact, some of them, their margins are rather getting squeezed. So it doesn't mean that because prices given to you are going up, you can transfer same. This is a competitive market, remember? And it's if you watch the price that we see on the billboard of Shell today, if the adjustment they make was reference to what happened the last 2 weeks, then of course Shell has been hit hard, because if they have to transfer whatever happened the last 2 weeks, the falling value of the cedi and the international price to us, trust me, we should be buying for more than 9 cedis per liter, because in the last 2 weeks the price of diesel on international markets has gone up by more than 33% in just 2 weeks. Look at how much margin has been increased of Shell. It doesn't come close to even 4%. So that is another thing we need to clarify. But let's move on, Sammy.
All right, so I was talking about because we are talking about the possibility of fuel shortage. Would there be any research at all to suggest the banks are willing to fund these marketers, seeing that this has virtually become an essential commodity that we can't live without?
Well, that is, we got a response from the BDCs that yes, the banks are solidly behind them. And it is something that comes up once in a while. And so they are working with the Bank of Ghana and their banks to ensure that what we see on the markets, because they can understand our position, but they are working so hard that it doesn't really, result into that position. So we have not done a research from the banks, but we've spoken to both importers and marketers of this products, and this is a key concern for them. But if the banks are willing to help, why would we seek to push for a shortage in the system? No, the IES is raising this concern so that the stakeholders within the sector may ensure that there is adequate and constant supply of this commodity, because they are vital for our daily life. And so we believe they are working on that. So it's just, a signal that IES raised just for consideration of the stakeholders.
Have you done any extrapolation, any simulation whatsoever to give us a sense of how long we have before we hit this point you're warning us about?
You can't tell how long, because you have no control over the management of the Ghana cities, and for how long it will keep declining in value, and by how much. Sammy, you can't tell. Number two, you have no control over the international price. The happenings on this market, geopolitics, production, and other factors dictate what prices should be. That is also out of your control, Sammy.
Now, my final two questions. One has to do with BOST, considering that they are a strategic reserve plant. And in such situations where, prices are escalating, you would expect that when they would come into the system and cushion Ghanaians. Can't we also see BOST play that role so we don't get to that point as well?
They have absolutely failed. They have failed to live up to an essential part of their mandates, and civil society organization willingly supported them to for them to have more than 100 or almost 200 percentage rise in the BOST margin. Although this margin has to be used for construction and maintenance of assets, a product in tank is also an asset, and so it could be used to produce that asset, maintain it at a good price, so that when prices go up, both on the international market and all that, you can cushion consumers with a good price and ensure supply stability as well. This mandate BOST has failed to live up to over the last 5 years, and I tell you, in their own books, they don't have any stock, or if there is a stock, it cannot meet our demand for the next 3 days. We are basically being supported, and kudos to the BDC. They have done a good work over the last few years, and they have ensured constant supply of these products. And we hope that whatever is happening today, they will be able to sail through and ensure that stability is maintained. But if you have to look at BOST, Sammy, forget it, please. Let's look elsewhere.
All right. My final one has to do with, talks about subsidies and support from government at a time when Ghanaians are very much stressed. Now, I remember last week, the concern had been raised about deregulation policy we are running, and whether for this particular moment we must temporarily halt it. Government intervenes to ease the burden or the load on Ghanaians with some subsidy or rebate, and then when we are out of the woods, we can go back to our deregulation. For instance, France is doing the same for its citizens. Can't we also look at that?
Sammy, touch not the deregulation regime. Don't interfere with it. It has really helped the markets. And there are records to show that deregulation, both supply and price deregulation, has helped us. There are records to show the downstream sector was deregulated in somewhere June 2015. Go check the price of gasoline, petrol in May, June 2015. And come check the price of same petrol in January 2017. It was basically stable for 1.5 years. Go check your record, you can find. It means that it's a competitive market where players have to, juggle here and there and ensure that they're able to get some market share by setting a price for consumers that is fair. Number two, it takes away any form of subsidies, and these subsidies, Sammy, over the past years has contributed to the energy sector debt that even ESLA has not been able to cure, and we still have high debts sitting in there. So it's not an area to go. We can play safely around this. But yes, I'm sure these are well-meaning Ghanaians and consumers who want to see some form of cushioning. Let me tell you, over the last 1 year, from March 2021 and now, the price of gasoline in Egypt has not gone up by more than 14%. The price of gasoline in South Africa has not gone up by more than 32%. The price of gasoline in Kenya has not gone up by more than 20%. Our price has gone up by more than 64%. Why? They are all importers of these products, and these African countries. How did they do it? In fact, some of them, yes, went looking at the suspension of the price stabilization and recovery levy. So they have similar ones. Beyond that, they went into the fund, the stabilization fund, to cushion consumers. It means we have money sitting in there. Use that money, and if you want to reduce up, ask OMC to hold price to a certain level, you can offset that cost with the fund. But if you don't have any fund to do that, don't do at all. The next thing this country did is to ensure prudent management of their local currency, so that if the international price hits them, they're able to cushion themselves from this angle as well, because this is also another contributing factor to price direction. What some of them did is also to reduce their landing costs within the supply chain, so that marketers of these products can sell at a certain price. So an array of interventions were sought for to ensure that they have some form of stability. Compared to us, we have an opportunity to do same. We can go into the stabilization fund to cushion consumers. We can suspend it, but to say let's bring back subsidies without any form of with no system of defraying that, but coming to add on to our energy sector debt, is trying to say that we won't die tomorrow, but by all means tomorrow will die, because it is sitting down in our books and it's going to affect the supply of electricity and other commodities in the same energy system. And so it's not an area to look at all. Let's safeguard the regime that we have, but I ask government to manage prudently the city and probably go into the stabilization fund to cushion consumers.
Now, thank you for making time to speak to me this morning.
Thanks, Sammy, and good morning once again.
Good morning to you. And that Executive Director for IES, Namwesi, joining us this morning on the show. So, Raymond, you hear his thoughts and the reasons they give for their position of the warning of a possibility of fuel shortage.
Like and subscribe and click on the notification. Happy FM, Nimdie, Happy FM, and Nijenkwa.